Hello, and welcome back to our podcast. I'm the Disturbed Southern Belle.
And I'm the gentleman.
We're continuing our October series of some more scary, disturbing, weird stories. And I've got a few that I found that are interesting at the very least. So this first one starts out, this was circa 2002. I was around 8. Me and my dad and stepmom at the time were on our way from California to Tennessee by plane. Once we landed, we got out of the plane and waited for my dad to turn on his phone to call my aunt, who was waiting for us at the airport. Waited a couple of minutes, and my dad had a ton of missed calls from my aunt, who was freaking out about where we were. He called her back, and she'd been asking us where we'd been, and says that she'd been waiting for us for over 2.5 hours. We were pretty confused because our flight got there at the normal amount of time without delays, but we somehow had lost 2.5 hours of time. Once we met up with them down in baggage, our carousel was empty and of luggage and other passengers. We had to go pick up our baggage somewhere because it had been unclaimed for too long. Still don't know what happened or how we lost this much time. Felt very weird and surreal for the rest of the night. So, pretty weird one there.
Pretty weird one, yes.
Don't know what happened. Just 2.5 hours gone. Their baggage was even put away because it hadn't been claimed. But everything was normal on their end. So, very weird.
Very weird.
So, when I was little, my parents had this painting of a soldier in a uniform. I could see it from my bed where the door was cracked. Several times, I saw the man in the painting move his head and look at me. The scariest experience was after I begged my parents to get rid of the painting. My dad calmed me down and I started to drift asleep, but I had this feeling where you're being watched. When I opened my eyes, and I have never forgotten this, the soldier turned his head and smiled. The next day, my dad threw the painting away. Years later, my dad told me he had heard me moving around in my bed and was looking down the hall trying to decide if he should go check on me again. While glancing down the hallway, he saw the man in the painting turn his head and smile.
Well, I don't like that.
That's very creepy. Very, very creepy. Okay, so the next one goes, one Saturday night several months ago, I attended a birthday party at a friend's house. There were about 40 people in attendance, and they were split between the basement and the main floor. I didn't go down to the basement even once because the music down there was extremely loud, which I hate. And most of my friends were on the main floor anyway. My best friend had given me a ride to the party, and we stayed together the whole night. A few days later, I ran into a distant friend of mine at school who had also been in attendance of the party. He took out his phone and started showing me some of the photos he'd taken that night. He got to one that showed him and a girl posing for the camera in the basement with me standing in the background, smiling and looking in the direction of the camera, but not quite at it. I obviously freaked out and told him I hadn't been in the basement. He told me he had seen me there for several minutes. He said he'd even tried to say hello, but I seemed distant and distracted. I called my best friend, and she confirmed that I had been with her the entire night. I was not drugged because I drank nothing all night but a water bottle that I had brought with me. To this day, when I think about the picture, it scares the crap out of me. There must have been another me in the basement.
Well, alrighty then.
That's creepy too.
That was a good one.
That was very creepy, though. Absolutely. So the next one goes, just a bit of background, no serious mental health problems other than some mild anxiety and depression. I take 25 milligrams of Zoloft, so I don't think I'm tripping or hallucinating. This morning, I woke up for work, left a little earlier than usual because I woke up before my alarm, filled my water bottle, grabbed my access card, things I needed for work, got in my car, drove off. My commute is the same every day. Takes around 40 minutes. It's on mostly interstate, and there's always traffic. While my car is warming up, I usually will pick up an album to listen to for the drive there. I usually make it about 3/4 of the way through an album before I get to work. Every day is a new album, so I did all that as I normally do. I drove to work. I remember being cut off. I remember being in a standstill traffic towards my exit. I remember the album I listened to. I even remember responding to a text using Siri. I remember seeing a type of car that I've never seen before in the U.S., and I remember thinking to myself, I'm glad it's not as hot today. I definitely drove. So I get to work, pull into the same parking space I take every day, step out of my car, and lo and behold, I'm still in front of my apartment building. 40 minutes later, almost done with the album I put on.
Well, that's not creepy at all.
It's very weird. Very weird. My goodness, that would freak me out beyond words. So this next one goes, my mother did all her gynecologist appointment with this doctor that was in downtown Austin. He was on the 5th floor of this hospital building and had a long-time nurse receptionist whose name was Allison. I remember attending her appointments when I was little, and my mother would make a game out of finding the office and being in the waiting room, which was colorfully decorated with this forest scene. Allison was this super sweet woman who was a half babysitter for us kids, too. She would read us books, give us coloring books, and occasionally even listen to our dreadful knock-knock jokes. We all referred to her as Allison Wonderland. Anyway, years down the road, I got married and pregnant and started searching for an OB since I'd moved back to the Austin area relatively recently before that. My mother suggested that I go see the same doctor who was super young. He'd only in his early 30s maybe when I was born, when he was in business. Well, I couldn't find his name in the hospital directory, so I figured I'd just swing by his office and check. My mother happened to be in town. She had moved, and she decided she'd come with me. We both joked about it being so familiar, but reverse situations now. As we reached the stairs, we ran into a problem. There was no 5th floor of this hospital office building. Odd. We both must have misremembered it. We knew it was on the top floor, so it must have been the 4th floor then. Nope, not there. We thought maybe we were in the wrong building, except we parked in the same parking garage thing from 20 years ago and walked the same route. That doctor does not exist. Never did, apparently. My mother and my brother and I are the only ones who remember him and Alice in Wonderland. We have asked around, including among the hospital staff. We even looked up our birth certificates, which are new copies, and just list attending physician with no doctor's name. One of my childhood memories is fake, but it's shared with my brother and my mother. What?
Oh, that just doesn't make any sense.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
That is insane. So the next one, and here, let's go. When I was around 20, a few years ago, I kept having dreams about this woman with long black hair named Aurora. There were different dreams, but for some reason, her distinct face and name always ended up in them. It got to the point where I'd wake up frustrated and confused. I tried to Google her name or find out if I was connected to her. Never could find anything. After a few months, she stopped showing up, so I just dismissed it. Fast forward a few years, around Halloween of 2009. I'm in the car with a friend, stopped at a gas station. I'm about to pull out and to merge onto the highway when I get this phone call from this random number. So I stop the car, but no one answers. There was a person behind me who grew impatient, honked at me, then swerved in front of me instead of waiting for the 2 seconds for me to move. The second they got on the highway, a silver Civic loses control and it crashes into the car that swerved in front of me. I called the cops and waited at the gas station for them to come. Turns out the drivers of both cars died. It 100% would have been me if I hadn't gotten that phone call. Called it back a few hours later out of gratitude and curiosity. It rang 3 times and went to voicemail. Said, "Hi, you've reached Aurora. Please leave your name and number." Never had goosebumps like that in my life. Called it again the next day because I was so confused about the whole situation. Some woman answers and we get to talking, and I tell her my entire story, including the dreams I had. She tells me she doesn't know how I got her number and that she never called me as far as she remembers. Weird. I ask her if she has a Facebook account to confirm if she is in fact the woman in my dreams. I was floored when I realized it was.
Huh.
Very weird too.
Yeah, that was a good one.
So, next, my dad used to get up around 3 a.m. every morning for work. Starting at a very early age, I would wake up on my own and wander downstairs to see him before he left. One morning when I was about 4 years old, I made it to the bottom of the stairs and noticed that the front door was ajar. I opened it up and saw that my father was there walking down the sidewalk towards his car in his favorite work shirt and his typical work outfit, which was like plaid shirt and jeans. I swung the door open wide and yelled for him to come back for a hug before he left. He slowly turned around and just stared at me and then started walking back towards the house. He was looking so strangely at me that it started to scare me, and I began crying and asking what was wrong. Just as he almost reached me, a pair of arms encircled me from behind in a bear hug. I turned my head to see my understandably freaked out father staring at his doppelgänger in the same outfit. The double took one look at my dad and ran down the driveway. Meanwhile, my dad yanked me into the house and locked the door. Weirdest morning ever. Never did quite figure that one out. I would not trust my 4-year-old memory of the event if it wasn't also witnessed by my father. He won't really talk about it these days, but my mom has since told me that he called out of work that day and she spent the entire day reassuring him he wasn't a nutcase.
Jesus.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So the next one goes, my family owns a house on Cape Cod. The previous owner was a white supremacist with an autistic son named Jimmy. Jimmy was known for putting on a trench coat and fedora, climbing trees, and shooting cats and dogs with a BB gun. So great guy, right?
Yep.
When my parents moved into the house, they found a bunch of Nazi paraphernalia in a bedroom. They put it in the shed, told the former owner they had a week to get rid of it, and then they threw it out. Of course, at the age of 7, I really didn't know any of this at that time. That's when I was visited 5 nights in a row by a figure in a trench coat and a fedora. He didn't have any real detail. He just more looked like a silhouette, like he was being powerfully backlit but with no light source. He would stand in the corner of the room or sit there crouched or sit on the bed opposite my brother's bed. But when he wasn't there, he was at summer camp at the time. One time he sat in a rocking chair, and when I looked later, he was gone, but the chair was still rocking. After a few nights of this, I told my parents about it. My mom called it a nightmare, but my dad was intrigued. He told me to tell the figure, Jimmy, I don't have your stuff. So the next night, when the figure appeared again in the corner of the room, I said, Jimmy, I don't have your stuff. Jimmy walked right over to me, put his face an inch away from mine, and then disappeared. I never saw him again. Years later, I found out about the history of the house, and I've often wondered if I had heard it before and somehow suppressed it, and then just imagined my encounters with Jimmy. But he was and remains entirely vivid to me. So that's another.
Like that one.
No, that's another creepy one. So we hope you enjoyed those. That was just some random ones that we found that we all thought were just interesting and scary, spooky. Supposedly they're real, so you never know what's lurking in the darkness. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and don't forget to stay disturbed.